I'll continue talking about how we can do to minimize the water contamination. And we want to use less toxic alternatives, and more is not better. And I have a funny story here. I have a lady complaining about her husband, said how stubborn her husband is. We all think other people are stubborn and something. But anyway, I don't want to go too much. Okay, so she said, my husband just use too much detergent when he does the laundry, and he always feel like if he doesn't use that amount of detergent, the clothes is not clean enough. Actually, we have this new fancy washer, and will not dump tons of water in the washer, right? With the weight of the clothes and just calculate the proper amount. So when you use too much detergent, the water, the clothes is always have the smell of the detergent. So here I want to use that story just to emphasize more is not better. And also remember, the more pesticide, the more insecticide we use, the more resistant the bugs are. We want to do the right disposal, and hazardous waste go to the hazardous waste, like how we dispose the battery, right? And never pour unwanted chemicals on the ground. You're killing the soil. That's a no-no. Think about that. 500 years to produce 1 inch of soil, and like in 5 seconds you killed the soil. Use water-based products whenever possible, and we smartly select the plants, and we reduce our use for fertilizer and the pesticide. That's a win-win situation. We save money, right? We save water and we save chemicals. So for the city water pollution, the fecal bacteria is number one. It's such as E. coli, such as Streptococcus, and then numbers of the types of bacteria are directly related to amount of fecal matter entering the system. And this is almost 10 years ago, in this country, 2,000 people died from a cholera outbreak due to the contaminated drinking water. And we have mentioned this in the beginning of the semester in our risk management and health exposure study in chapter 2. And organic matter, along with soap or detergent, were entering the water, and most of those phosphate containing detergent have already banned since 1994. And various chemicals were found in the water because of this overloading the city water system, and the treatment is not thorough enough. So this in a study, this is how bad it is. In a study of 139 streams throughout the United States, the USGS found one or more chemicals in 80% of sample streams. And these chemicals largely escape regulation and not removed by city wastewater treatment. I think that's probably the source of the fear. People like to use bottled water, and sometimes they feel like the tap water is not safe enough. But nowadays, I think the quality of the water is more tightly, strictly regulated, and most of the time we can trust our tap water. And agricultural, now we move into the agricultural water pollution. I want you to check out page 366. I joke with my previous students those are the animal camps, the concentrated camps of the animals. I'm just kidding. But you can have a glance how many animals we feed in a confined area. It's very concentrated, produce a lot of waste. And the other pollution reason is excessive fertilizer use. As I mentioned before, many soils do not need to be added fertilizer. We make this artificial thing of overgrowing crops, desperate for food, and we dump tons of chemicals in the environment. excessive, and it goes to the runoff, right? Carrying nutrients, organic matter, and the bacteria. What can we do to limit the agricultural water pollution? It's also on the same page, 366. We leave a conservation buffer. The buffer we mean here is strips of plants, areas of undisturbed vegetation. We plant plants that is effectively preventing the erosion and runoff. And we keep soil covered with crops so it's not eroded so bad, and control amount and timing of fertilizer application. And we use our smart, right, integrated pest management instead of just solely relying on those chemicals. Factories and industrial complexes frequently dispose of waste in municipal sewage system. So this is one of the reasons of industrial water pollution. This waste, especially some chemicals, may require special wastewater treatment, and that is expensive. You understand better when we finish talking about wastewater treatment. Some of the waste is easier to be removed, such like big chunks, right? We can sift through grids and or let them simply settle down on the majority. And some of the chemicals is very hard to remove, and it's very costly. So some of the companies and the factories just dump those water in the environment. That is a no-no. And the mining is a special source of industrial water pollution also. And we talk about how acidic the water is, acid rain, all that in the previous chapters. Now, thermal pollution, if we do not take away the heat out of the water, it's causing the contamination in the nature, because only elevation of a few degrees in temperature that kills a lot of stuff. A lot of fish do not even reproduce, and some fish will just die. It's just too hot. The environment is too hot. They're very sensitive. And the coral reefs too, right? And today in the industrial world, most cooling water is not released because of this reason. So we have this very smart cooling tower. We try to cool the steam before we release into the environment. That is a good thing to do. The other thing we can do is to store them in a pond, let them cool down, and then diverge them into rivers. Or just let them simply sit there, just let the heat dissipated into the environment. Another water contamination is marine oil contamination, and we have this case study. We know how bad it is, and we know the reasons. I just want to mention some interesting facts here. Where those oil go after they spilled in the ocean. Cannot find my cursor again. Okay, I'll just leave it here. So 50% biodegraded on beaches or the waters. That is good news. 50% were gone by themselves, but it takes time. It's not be done like in one night, right? And sometimes it takes a long time to be degraded. 20% evaporated and 14% recovered. And there's about like 15% like is starving. It sit on the sea bottom, right? That's not a good thing. 3% lies on the shorelines, killing plants and animals. 1% still adrift. That is no good. And what causes massive oil pollution? Because people do not comply with the standards. You're supposed to have one certain equipment to transport the oil, but look at the percentage, how low is that? In 1992, new oil tanks must be double hauled, but currently 25% of all tankers double hauled. So this is a human mistakes we made. And for the groundwater pollution, we have agricultural products, underground storage tanks, landfills,